Hello, everyone. It is Wednesday, October 4th, 2023 at 3:30 p.m. This is the Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee meeting called to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderman Balmer.
Present.
Alderwoman Keys.
Present.
Alderman Browning.
Present.
Alderman Aldridge.
Present.
Chair Schweitzer.
Present.
You have 5 present. You have a quorum.
Okay, we will quickly approve the minutes of September 20th, 2023. I will entertain a motion on the approval of the minutes of September 20th, 2023.
So moved. Second.
Been moved by the Alderman from the 5th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Alderman Balmer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Keys.
Aye.
Alderman Browning.
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge.
Aye.
Chair Schweitzer.
Aye.
We have 5 aye votes.
With your vote, we have approved the minutes of September 20th, 2023. As I let the committee and sponsors of bills who have hearings today know, yesterday via email, we will be having a special presentation at the beginning of our meeting today from Miss Jennifer Jen Wade from MoDOT. She is the St. Louis regional engineer for our area, and she has a wonderful presentation prepared for us about the work MoDOT does on streets and roads in the city of St. Louis. And she has graciously allowed us to also ask questions after her presentation. So she's got about a 20-minute presentation to go through, and then we will have questions for the committee to ask questions. Ms. Wade, do you feel ready to get started?
Let's go.
All right, thank you so much.
I'm going to have to adjust a few things on my screen. There we go. So as Chair Schweitzer mentioned, I am the area engineer for MoDOT in the city of St. Louis. MoDOT obviously is the Department of Transportation for the whole state. There are 7 districts in the state. The St. Louis district is over 5 counties in Missouri. And then those 5 counties are split up into areas. And I'm the area engineer, so I oversee MoDOT projects, maintenance items, anything we're doing with inside the city of St. Louis would be my purview. As such, I am your contact. So if there's ever something you need from MoDOT, if it's from our maintenance team, or if it has to do with, planning for the future, or a question about from one of your constituents, I can be your first point of contact, and then I can help direct you and to the right person inside the body of MoDOT. So let's see if I can. All right, that's going to work. Okay, so today I'm just going to go over relatively quickly the routes that we manage in the city and what our role is here. We'll talk about some upcoming projects, and we'll share a few opportunities that MoDOT can collaborate with you all, and then take any questions. And that I told Chair Schweitzer to make sure to tell me how many minutes, because this topic can really expand to take a lot of time. So first, the MoDOT owned routes in the city of St. Louis are really just the interstates, okay? So even that gets a little bit tricky, but this is where we own the right of way. We can buy and sell property to expand the road if we want, or sell it when we no longer need it for state roadways. So they're highlighted in blue here. You are all very familiar with them. I always use my hand gesture of like I-70, 64, 44, and 55. So it's those 4 interstates and then the connections between them. We also manage many bridges over the river, most of them in tandem with IDOT. So we'll share costs 50-50, and sometimes they'll manage projects and sometimes we will. Okay, the city-owned routes that MoDOT maintains are in pink. Now this is hard to explain, but the city is the owner still of these roads. We, MoDOT, the state, does not own any of the land that these roads are on. So we don't have the ability to purchase more space if we want to expand this roadway. That still remains in the city's purview. So There was an agreement written, there was many agreements written through the 90s, and in 2004 is the controlling agreement right now between us that has been amended with small detail changes. But that's the controlling agreement that describes these 7 routes that are listed here. Generally speaking, they were selected because they're routes that connect to roads MoDOT does own in the county, but we don't own in the city. So we generally drew those in, and for the most part, they're east-west running routes with some exceptions. I have an asterisk here on Chippewa because this one is a little bit different. So since we don't own them and we maintain them, there are certain things we do manage and are our responsibility, and certain things that we don't manage. So what do we maintain? In this, there's a picture of Gravois and Grand, I believe. And we maintain the pavement on these routes. We maintain the striping and the signals. This is another picture of what we do maintain, more striping. We also maintain signage. So we're up to the 4th one is signage. And this is the park, we do pave the parking area as well. Okay, what we don't maintain, and this is really important for you guys. We don't maintain the lighting. Again, on the arterial routes, we do on the highway. That's our maintenance item on the highway. This is a poor picture, but we're not responsible for any parking, specifically paid parking. That is not something that the city wanted to ask MoDOT to participate in when you asked a few decades ago for this help. Sidewalks. Our maintenance agreement is written to be curb to curb. So MoDOT does not have the authority to move where that curb is without your approval. But we also don't have any maintenance responsibility of the curbs themselves or the sidewalks. Those are still completely your item to manage. And then another one on here is this tree in the background. We don't do any landscaping that's not on MoDOT right of way. That would include in a median or, street trees. So none of that would be a MoDOT item. Okay. So how do we do our projects? So MoDOT writes every year, we write a 5-year plan. It's called the Statewide Transportation Improvement Program. This lays out the projects we expect to do in the next 5 years. The first 3 years are very close to being fully filled out. And then in years 4 and 5, we kind of fill them up about halfway. We're trying to get an idea of what projects might be coming. As it gets closer, we'll infill with more projects if we can. We always refer to this as the STIP. So you'll hear it almost exclusively referred to as the STIP. We have this map that you can see on the left side is straight from our website. And it's interactive. You can select these check boxes to see what years and it'll highlight the different routes, the straight lines for the routes, and then those boxes for the bridges that are coming up. But it's super helpful. This clip is a year old, so now I think it should start in 23 and go to 27. Super helpful if you're wanting to know, like, when is the next time MoDOT's planning on paving my route? You can go to our STIP on our website, which I have the links at the end of the presentation, anytime you want, and you can take a peek at when we're coming there next. You can click on the map itself, and it'll bring up some details about what work is planned for that. All of this work is based on the model of our asset management plan. So every route that we have is cataloged, and we understand that, okay, this type of route, we're going to have to revisit it every 7 to 10 years. So it gets put on a schedule. So there's always a time when we know something will get touched in the future. And MoDOT it almost exclusively touches routes when it's time for their next pavement or bridge job or whatever. So when the asset management is due, that's when we're going to layer on any other additional work that we you or we might be interested in. So if it's time to pave it, that's when we're going to look for additional safety projects or things like that. Okay, so what projects are coming up? There's a lot we've just done, but for the brevity of this presentation, I'm starting with what's coming up in the future. So this is our list of the arterial projects that are coming up that are significant. There's actually a lot more than I'll be presenting today, but mostly I was focusing on things you all might be interested in contributing to. So next year in 2024, we are doing a big project on Hall Street. It includes a road diet, which means reducing one lane in each direction and paving. This has been many years in the making. It's a big collaboration with MSD. They have some drainage work that they wanted to do there to get this road to actually drain. And we were able to contribute to this project by helping with the road diet portion because it was funded inside of what we normally would have needed to give for paving the road. So this is a really unique project. I have a whole hour-long presentation we can do on it, but that's coming up. Also in 24, this one got delayed because of not getting appropriate bids, but we have a paving project coming on Riverview. There are two segments of Riverview that we manage. The south segment from I-70 to Halls Ferry Circle is the one that's coming up now. That will be bid in combination with another project that MoDOT has in the county. And that one includes, it's a paving project. Again, it all starts with paving, but the city was interested, the Alder people were interested in having safety enhancements on this corridor. We're not able to get safety funds from MoDOT for that cycle, but the Alder people were interested in putting more capital towards that. And in the end, it ended up being funded through ARPA. 2025, we just began a road safety audit on Manchester and Choteau. This is Route 100 for us. It's a continuous line for us. So it's getting a pavement treatment. When you redo pavement, this is our chance to redraw stripes. It's a great time to look at safety. There are a lot of bicycle crossing paths or a cycle track being built that cross Manchester, and it tends to be a connecting route. So the big question here is not necessarily about the opportunity to reduce lanes, where the big question is going to be really about bicycle facilities on that route. Like I said, we're just starting the road safety audit right now with some focus groups coming up. We'll be sending out invitations for those soon. And for the Alder people whose districts cross Manchester and Choteau, you should be hearing from me and then by the end of the week with an update about this whole project. Page Avenue and MLK, again, is one route, Route D for us. That paving project is coming in 2026. The road safety audit for that project has been underway for some time. We're expecting it to be a road diet still. Some of the details about what the layouts should look like is still upcoming. But those road safety audits have a lot of community engagement. I know I've seen some of you out there at our public meetings, our focus groups, the safety demonstration. So it takes some work for a road diet where you're reducing lanes on the roadway. It's a lot. It's a big change. So we want to make sure we're talking to the community early and often about what we're thinking, why. And so we've still got a little bit of time before that rolls out as well to keep doing that work. And then also in 2026, Riverview, the north segment of it, which starts at Hall Street and then goes north to 270, that is actually coming up due for another paving job. Right now, there's no predicted safety enhancements. The last time we came and touched Riverview with pavement, there was median put in, some reduction of pavement. So there's been a significant change there. So I imagine in the next year or two, we'll get started looking at a safety assessment, sort of a pre and post from the last project and see if there's anything else that we need to do there. So on arterials, I wanted to highlight a few opportunities to collaborate that we do with the Alder people that are coming through the district, or you at any time you all can reach out to me if you're interested. We could always use your help in communicating with residents, especially when we have public meetings coming up or focus groups. this communication actually goes both ways. So if there's a group of residents that is very interested in this corridor, they've been demanding things or requesting things from you all, letting me know about that is really helpful so that we can reach out and make sure we're hearing their concerns. Co-investing to address the whole corridor. I think this is always the one that we want to talk about with you guys. When we're putting a beautiful, clean slate of pavement on it, is a perfect time to address sidewalks, either in a very, piecemeal approach, or if there's entire segments that you guys want to address, it's the perfect time to do that. Once again, we cannot purchase property to broaden the, sometimes sidewalk work a lot of times requires easements and things like that that have to be bought to make things back to standard. We don't get to do any of that on these corridors. So it does require coordination with you all to make it happen. Plantings. So I think you all are probably familiar with the very large medians that were put in on Natural Bridge. So when that happened, we had collaboration with the Alder people to talk about what could be maintained, where it could go. MoDOT cannot do any of that landscaping work. So if grass medians or landscape medians are a desire for a neighborhood, that has to be set up ahead of time so we know who's going to be maintaining it. And then of course, any additional safety enhancements you're interested in. When we're doing those paving projects, is a great time to get that information into our study or into our designs, or if there's additional investments you want to make in that would go beyond what MoDOT does. The last one on here is consider access management. So it would be pretty, these are state or city owned roads. So it's not, MoDOT does not have the ability to close access. So if there is a confusing intersection with maybe 6 legs to it rather than 4, or if those legs come in at a skew, I'm describing basically the entire route of Gravois. And we do not have the authority to close those. We can certainly help with the study of those intersections. A few years ago, MoDOT made a set of recommendations about simplifying intersections. I think this is, when I think about simplifying intersections, Gravois comes to mind. It's not on our list of things that's getting pavement in the near term, but it will come up very soon again. And if the city can move on simplifying intersections before that, or if we can do that planning ahead of time, then we could be ready when it's time. I wanted to share some upcoming projects in the interstates. These tend to have, these are really impactful and really important for you all to know. There's usually fewer, these are state owned, so there's fewer investments from you all that go into these projects. But it's really important for you to know about it. And when you know what's coming up, you can also share those community perspectives with us. So anybody who uses I-55 knows we've been working on bridges there for a few years already. We'll continue that bridge work in 2024. It's supposed to wrap up around the end of the year. But in 24, we will also begin the paving work that always follows the bridges. That'll be less impactful. It's closing lanes at a time rather than an entire side of the highway. But that begins in 24. As we open the segments where the bridges are complete, then we'll be able to get in there and do the paving as we're finishing bridges in the south side. 25, we have a small paving project on I-70 that shouldn't be a huge impact. Skipping 26 because we do have projects in the interstate in 26. They're just not that interesting, sign projects and whatnot. In 27, we have a list of bridges in the city to be replaced, and these are going to be really impactful. I put a map on this side showing where that eastbound I-64 eastbound bridge that goes over Vanaventer is going to be replaced in 2027. That's a big deal because it carries I-64 traffic through there. Because it's such a big deal, we've been studying this whole corridor. The image here is snapped from our Future 64 study, which many of you have heard about. But the other bridges over here listed here are also going to be significant. We've got some safety improvements coming to Loughborough over 55. Weber over 55 will probably be more like a replace in kind. And Macklin and Edwards, at least, I think there might be another one, over I-44 need to be addressed as well. So, and we're looking at options for those. A lot of times when we're doing interstate overpasses, we're evaluating the pedestrian bike facilities there to make sure those interstates don't remain a barrier to communities trying to get across. This is my slide about Future 64. So back up one. So this image here is showing kind of the 30,000 foot view of the I-64 corridor between Kings Highway and Jefferson. We've been talking about it a lot the past few years as part of this planning and environmental linkages study to prepare for this bridge work. But there's also, I think there's 8 bridges in this corridor that are in poor condition. So we wanted to make sure that now's the time to change things before we build them right back the way they were. As you can see on this map, and on this map, this is there are 1.5 interchanges between Grand and Compton on the I-64 corridor, and it's so confusing. This is just an example of what's maybe less than perfect about the way it is now. So we have been looking at this interchange as well as the interchange at Tower Grove, Boyle, Vanaventer to try to look for improvements, and we will be layering those together over the next few years. This is not one large project that will happen, but probably a few. Changing these interstate ramps. Again, I could talk for 2 hours about Future 64. I want you all to be aware that changes in these areas are hopefully coming. The next stage is starting now, where we are looking to partner with the city, understand what's the best version of the interstate through this really impactful corridor for the future, and plan and invest together in doing that. So right now we have 3 reasonable alternatives. We're going to be looking to define that as one vision for the way forward. So that in the next few months, you'll be hearing from us a lot about this corridor. Here are the links, and I can copy them and put them in the chat. So MoDOT.org is just our frontline webpage. There's actually a lot of information on there that's helpful. Generally speaking, for the projects that anybody might care about, we'll have a whole webpage just about the timeline and details and the why of what we're doing on these projects. So if you just go to MoDOT.org, look under projects, St. Louis City projects, you'll be able to search through what we've got and find any project. Of course, you can always call as well. There's a link for the STIP. The Citizens Guide to Transportation Funding in Missouri can be helpful for elected officials to help explain to the public how things get funded on the state level if you're interested. And then we are funded to a certain level, and our statewide leaders are also interested in knowing, hey, MoDOT, if we gave you more money, what would you do with it? Because we would always like to have more money. But we have officially created a list that says, okay, if you gave us more money, this is what we would do with it. It includes near and far term items. It includes, expansion or changes, lots of things, new bridges. Right now, we're getting a 3rd lane across the state, in part because of this work that we're doing to communicate with our legislators. And then this is my contact information. Like I said, I am your contact point for MoDOT. It's really helpful to be able to build a relationship with one person, then I can point to the right people on our maintenance team or bring them to the meeting. Or if it's our utilities engineer that you want to talk to, we can bring him to the table. So please let me know if there's anything I could do to help. And I think I will leave that one up if you all have questions.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wade. That was a very informative presentation. I definitely learned a lot. I know we're all going to have questions, so I'm going to just run through my committee members, starting with my vice chair, because I do see his hand up already. Alderman Vice Chair Browning, please begin.
Thank you, Jen. That was a great presentation, and really just appreciate how you handle it. I had a couple questions. Who do we contact for issues with MoDOT maintained roads, like Manchester, for instance? You? Okay. And I'm grateful to see that the repaving is scheduled, because that's what I was going to contact you about. So great. And the other question, is MoDOT responsible for the bridges over the highways? I'm talking like the Tower Grove Bridge and the Boyle Bridge, and like you're also okay. So if there's any issues with those, contact you as well.
Yes. And
okay.
it can get tricky sometimes when there's an intersection on both sides. sometimes we have those, sometimes we don't, but you know, you can always just call and find out. But generally speaking, we have the overpasses as well.
Excellent. All right. And last question. You said Manchester and Shoto. I'm assuming that is, you said it's one continuous line. So the like 4,100 through 4,500 blocks of Shoto, I think, are not MoDOT. Is that correct?
Ooh, I can pull up, I'd have to pull up a map and see. What's the cross street?
So it's where Shoto kind of splits off from Manchester. It kind of turns into Manchester as you go across Vandevetter.
Right. When they're on top of each other like that, then we have Manchester, and then we catch Shoto after Manchester dead ends into Shoto.
So you have Shoto east of Vandevetter.
That's right.
Okay, that's helpful. Okay, thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you again for your presentation.
Yeah, no problem. Manchester's going to be a big one. The road safety audit we have coming up, there'll be a lot of players really interested in what's going on. So stay tuned. You'll be getting an email from me soon.
Sounds good.
I think you probably just made Vice Chair Browning's day on that.
I know it's been pockmarked by all these utilities, so I get it.
Yeah, it's exciting to know about big safety projects coming to our neighborhoods. Moving through seniority, it's the Alderman Balmer. Might have stepped away for a moment. I see an empty room. So Alderwoman Keys.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very good presentation as always, Jen. Glad to have you here. I do not have any questions at this time. It's always great to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Alderman Aldridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Jen, for being here for MoDOT. Appreciate all the work that you guys do. Had the opportunity to learn a lot of the work you guys do on the state level, and do a lot of great work, and truly underpaid for all the great work you guys do to keep our streets safe. But no questions, thank you.
I'll keep you around. Thank you.
Alderman Balmer, do you have any questions?
No questions at all. Thank you very much.
Okay, I have a million. Okay, unless Alderman Sherman Clark-Hubbard, do you have any questions? I'm happy for you to ask.
Thank you for the opportunity, Madam Chair. And I don't have any questions, but I would like to publicly comment Jen and her staff for the way they have been working with the community engagement over on the page, draft the call meeting, road diets, everything with the demonstrations, the different ways you all have came and showed up in the community and connected has made a difference. I don't know if the question will come up in this presentation, and I didn't want to take it over again. I appreciate by me not being on the committee, you let me speak, but if a timeline can be shared, because I know a lot of our constituents, especially when they see the community engagement, then they want to wake up the next morning with what they see. Yeah. And if you can tell, give some kind of guidance around the timeline, how long it actually does take to get some of these projects going and underway, I think that would be helpful for all of us to share.
Yep, will do. Thanks.
Thank you.
And we've had folks throughout that community engagement effort, we've had folks sharing their email addresses with us. So we can, even just for folks who had signed up, anytime they come, we can push that information out. So thanks for letting me know that's desired.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate the presentation. It was very helpful to hear about some of the projects you have. You have a 5-year plan, and you said you update it every year. So I find that to be really interesting. Is that plan just sort of a general part of your budget? Do all your engineers work on it? How do you move that plan?
Ooh, okay. So for the city area, I have a project manager who oversees, pushing the projects forward. We have an asset management, our planning department runs our asset management software. So they keep track of what needs to be coming up next. We also have like a pavement specialist who goes out and rates pavement for us. We have our bridge inspectors, they rate our bridges for us. So those folks bring to us, they said, hey, it was time for us to look at Page Avenue. We looked at it. Yep, it's still due in a few years. It's going to need this kind of pavement. And then they let us know what it is. So we are funded by, car registrations and gas tax for the MoDOT system. We have been told by our public that their first priority is for us to take care of the system. So we allocate money first to our maintenance efforts. In the past, that has been the maximum amount. Maybe it's even been less than that we have been allocated. So there has been a big restriction on what we could do during these maintenance moments. So things have changed. We have now gotten an increase in the gas tax. We also have some safety money that, through the dedicated effort of my predecessor in this role and one of our traffic engineers, who is also over the city, in terms of opening up safety funds, or state safety funds, to be spent on city arterial roads. That had not been done before. There's reasons in our district budget. We don't get our allocation of money for these city roads. We have to use that we're basically stealing from the other MoDOT owned arterial roads that are in this district when we spend money on city owned roads, just the way the state funds us. It is an agreement we laid out. It is our commitment to do so. But because of that, we had this restriction for a long time. But now the pot of money that's set aside just for safety has been open to be spent in the city, which is very logical considering where the safety concerns are in our district. Right. So I'm thrilled, and it is my current policy to try to make sure we're getting as much of that as we can.
That's really interesting. I had heard you say safety fund, and I was wondering how that differed from just your regular paving or maintenance fund. So you've kind of answered that a little bit there.
It is mandated from the federal level that we have a certain amount of money that we normally get to spend on roads that we have to allocate towards safety, because this state does not have an open container law. It's not illegal to have an open container of alcohol in your car while you're driving. So the federal government then requires us to spend some of our money on safety, which frankly works for me.
Yes, I didn't know I should be grateful for that law.
We shouldn't be grateful. Yeah. Hopefully we can still spend safety funds without that requirement, but.
Right. I appreciate that. In terms of you said you have some roads on like a rotating schedule. So it's a rotating schedule for an inspection, or it's a rotating schedule. So say, Gravois, for example, you said it'd be coming up in a few years. It gets inspected, and then you decide whether you're going to keep it on that same schedule and then maybe move it, or.
Right. They have a pretty good idea of when it'll be coming up. So when we do the inspection, sometimes they'll say, actually, it's holding together really well, so they push it back a year. So I don't have it in the STIP yet, so I can't really tell you when it's going to be, but we consider the STIP commitments to the public. So.
Okay. Around some of the Gravois issues that you brought up with the changing of intersections, knowing kind of on our end what timelines are needed to do that work before your work comes up, how do you communicate that with the city, with aldermen being so kind of tied into some of these decisions? How does that work on your end?
We have regular meetings every 2 months. Yes, every other month with that we call the city state meeting. And we, generally speaking, we have John Kohler from BPS there, plus other designers and project managers. Kevin Trapp often comes. Yarrick can come to that. Scott Ogilvie will come from the planning department often. And then sometimes we'll have Bethany or Jamie from streets department. So we get, and then I bring my area team to that meeting as well. And then we also have folks from a lot of different departments come in to help talk about the funding that we do, pass-through funding. We manage a lot of the funding you guys get from the federal government through us. So we'll bring our local programs administrators to that meeting too. And we all talk through all the projects that are in construction, make sure we're not conflicting with each other. We talk through each year of our STIP. We talk about all the projects. And so it's through those avenues then that we would be communicating out. And it's usually John or Scott Ogilvie that gives us the advice, like, hey, don't forget to reach out to these folks, or whatever. We explain what our public engagement plan is going to be. They'll flag something if there's more that we need to do in one area or another. So, and then it's up to me on a project by project basis, or my consultant teams to reach out to you guys, the alder people, to let you know about projects that are coming up. You also now, if you look at the STIP or you hear from me in a presentation that you know it's coming up, you are always welcome to reach out to us as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The kind of veering off track of that a little bit, utilities coordination. When utilities are going to do work on a MoDOT managed street in the city of St. Louis, what kind of communication happens?
Almost none. Utilities is not something that we permit on city routes. So that permitting still goes through you guys. I have already begun the process of talking to, we were going to reach out just today. I was saying, who else besides Spire do we need to talk to? Because I know they were poking holes all down Manchester last time we paved it, and I refused to again, if we can avoid it. It's hard to do, and especially because you all permit it, and it's not the folks who are doing the permitting that we're meeting with all the time necessarily. So now I'm in the process of reaching out to see if we're going to have this issue on Page, if we're going to have this issue on Manchester. Sometimes you can't do anything about it. For example, on Hall Street, they're going to be doing, MSD has a very large drainage project. We were trying for years to merge our paving work and their drainage work into one project. It just doesn't work. So we're going to go first. They're going to go second. We already understand they're going to be putting a couple of pipes underneath our new pavement a few years later, fine. But when it's puck, we try to avoid that if we can. So it's just we do that through our normal project management process.
How does that work outside of city owned streets? If there's like a, say in the county, in Manchester and the county, is that completely owned by MoDOT as well? And okay.
Yeah, so like you take Natural Bridge and you cross the city boundary into the county, and now it's MoDOT owned. So we would manage the permits ourselves. So we get to hold people accountable if they're not repaving the way we want them to, and so we have more of a closer relationship with the utilities in those areas, because they have to come to us for their next permit. So it can still be challenging, but unfortunately I'm not quite the expert. That's one where I would bring in our utilities engineer to talk about how they do that.
Yeah, I'd be very interested to hear on that end. That's something that I've been spending a lot of time thinking about in the city of St. Louis, and how utilities get permits, what they're responsible for doing to, actually finish the work, and how that gets all reviewed, and how we keep on a schedule so that they're not doing work, the day after you pave. And I think that, we all have only so much money to spend. So if fresh pavement gets torn up, it will get potholes faster. It will, it's
very frustrating.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting to hear your perspective on it still being difficult for MoDOT, because it's definitely difficult in the city. So I definitely would enjoy being connected with the utilities person with MoDOT to see if you charge for the permits, if you have a specific amount of pavement that, if there's going to be a certain amount of work done on a street, do they repave the whole thing? Or is it, a size patch that you have some sort of, rules and regulations around, and how you enforce that? I would be very interested in hearing.
Sure. Yeah, I can connect you.
Thank you.
Our utilities engineer lives in the city, so he would love to share that information with you.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I'd love to hear it. So I guess I have just two more quick questions. I did notice on your presentation that you had a line that said the goal of increasing safety for all users. Is that an internal MoDOT policy, or is that like a Vision Zero type policy that you all have been following, or how did you get to the point where you're putting that on your materials?
I believe that was in the Future 64 materials where you saw that. Do you know?
Yep.
I'm recalling that. So that was specifically called out by the public during our public outreach. So do we also have that value? Yes, we do. But where you saw it is listed in the needs for a future of I-64 through the Central Corridor. And one of the basic, most unanimous things we heard as we went to the public and said, hey, what should I-64 look like here for the next 20 or 100 years instead of the past 20 or 100 years? They all said, we want bicyclists and pedestrians to feel more comfortable crossing over this corridor. And as an interstate project, you don't usually think of it as being a pedestrian focused thing, but we heard it over and over again. And from every, from all the residents, elected officials, business owners, developers, everybody wanted that vision for this corridor. In terms of MoDOT, we have a show me zero safety value. We are not a Vision Zero organization. I think that is something very specific. It basically must include, if you actually ascribe to an actual Vision Zero, it must include slowing cars down to be a safe, to have safe levels of energy when you crash into things. It's not a crash prevention model. It is a fatality and serious injury reduction model, or prevention model. And so we have not yet as a state agreed to, not traveling 70 miles an hour on the interstate or 60 miles an hour on the interstate, as it were, in the city.
Yeah, so, I read recently that, 20 miles an hour, it's a lot less chances of being killed than if 40 miles an hour is like 100% chance. And I think about our streets like Gravois, that's a 30 mile an hour zone, and people are going 40, 45, and 100% chance someone gets hit on Gravois, they're going to die. So thinking about, applying that sort of safety of all road users on all the projects that are done, especially the projects that do have pedestrians and cyclists and people in wheelchairs and walkers using these roads and sidewalks, it was heartening to see that laid out. So I appreciate that. I'll look more into Show Me Zero. We have 1 minute left for your presentation. I have one more question.
Yep.
But it sounded like you wanted to say something, so I don't want to interrupt you.
We have a new document called the SAFER document. So we have a SAFER policies and we also have SAFER projects, and they list out lots of considerations that our legislators need to consider in terms of safe policies, but also there's a separate document that talks through what we should be looking at as project managers and designers on the roadway on every project to say, hey, are there railroad crossings here? Are there schools nearby? Have you considered these? Is there anything you can do to manage speeds? So there's a long list.
I will look at that.
Reference documents to you guys.
I appreciate this. This is fantastic information. So my last question is actually from Representative Steve Butts, who's watching today. Hello, Steve. He wanted to know if we have the monthly third-party trash pickup is still operational on the highways 55 and 70.
Yes. Yeah, that's still going. It should be going at least through this year. So it's been successful. And so we don't want to stop it. Of course, there's funding considerations to keep in mind. And so I can't promise that that'll continue, but we have not been able to keep up with the amount of litter that's been on the roadway. And so these additional sweeps by contractors have been really valuable to us. So yeah, they will be continuing. It is still in play right now. If you're seeing things get excessive and you're wondering when our next visit is, you can always send me an email.
Okay. And I guess the trash pickup doesn't happen along this city-owned but MoDOT maintained roads.
Correct. We do provide street sweeping on the city-owned MoDOT maintained routes on the arterials, but our sort of state standards may not be sufficient, and we hold no monopoly over the sweeping there. I think that was one of the circles I was supposed to be talking about, was sweeping.
I don't know what that circle is.
Yeah, you're always welcome to. The city can always provide more sweeping, or an individual organization can always provide more sweeping on those routes if they so chose.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm so grateful for your time this afternoon. It's been so educational for me, and I'm sure for people who are watching at home to see what MoDOT does, what the city does, who to talk to for what. I think all of this information is just helpful as we all have the goals of having safer, better roads for everyone to use. So thank you again, Ms. Wade, for coming and for presenting today. It was very, very educational. Last chance if any other committee members have any questions before we move on. Okay, seeing no hands, we'll let you get back to your Wednesday. Thank you again for making the time.
Thank you too. It's been great. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you all for listening to the presentation. I think it was really good to learn this. And Jen and I were talking before we started, and she said that she didn't believe MoDOT had ever come to present to a streets committee or public infrastructure and utilities committee meeting. So I'm very glad that they have now. And I think that is good to coordinate and to know what's going on. So I appreciate that. We'll move back in our agenda to item number 4, board bills for review. I do not see Alderwoman Spencer here. So we'll move to our next alderman who's not on the committee. We will bring up item number 3, which is board bill number 118. Alderwoman Shameen Clark Hubbard, you are recognized on that board bill.
Thank you. I would like to ask the clerk to read the summary of board bill 118, please.
Board Bill number 118, introduced by Alderwoman Shameen Clark Hubbard. An ordinance establishing a 3-way stop site at the intersection of Clara Avenue and Pershing Avenue, regulating all traffic traveling north and southbound on Clara Avenue, and all traffic traveling east and westbound on Pershing Avenue at the intersection of Clara Avenue and Pershing Avenue, and containing an emergency clause.
All right, thank you so much, Madam Clerk. So it's just adding a 3-way stop, adding another layer of street calming to this corner, a very heavily trafficked corner now, even more than ever because of the continuing growth in population over there with the new development. And I didn't know if I had any speakers here to speak on behalf of it signed up.
I do not have any speakers signed up.
Okay. I know one of my constituents sent written testimony, and not only is she's a constituent, she lives in the Developer Place area, but she's also serves on the Developer Place SBD as a commissioner. So I didn't know if that could be entered into the record, just as, again, another way to show that they have their meetings monthly. It's a very well organized a committee over there with their SBD committee, and they have been asking now for this for us to move forward on this 3-way stop at this corner. So with that, I'll accept any questions about this, and also hopefully enter that written testimony into the record as well.
Sounds good. We can read the testimony into the record now if Clerk Phillips has it up.
Oh, I can read it if she, I didn't know she, okay, I misunderstood. I can read it if you want me to read it. I was just saying it could be entered into the record, but I can read it.
Yeah, let's hear from this person. Thank you.
Okay, great. These comments are in support of Board Bill 118 to regulate the traffic on Pershing and Clara with the addition of a stop sign on Pershing at the intersection with Clara. I have lived in the neighborhood for over 16 years, and the traffic at this intersection continues to be more and more dangerous. Vehicles continue to speed down Pershing from both directions. The addition of so many apartment buildings along Pershing over the past few years has led to street parking density, which makes it very difficult to see when you are turning from Clara either way onto Pershing. The intersection at the Bolivar and Pershing is much more challenging than it used to be. We lost the traffic lane with the addition of the trolley, and along with the new Expo building, there is so much more traffic. It often backs up to Forest Park Parkway as drivers try to turn in. Once frustrated drivers are finally able to turn east on Pershing, they fly down the street. The area is home to many Washington University students who use the university provided transportation vans. These are often stopped in the middle of the street for pickup, drop off, and these stop signs will help drivers to be more mindful of them. For as long as I have attended the Bolivar Place SBD meetings and have been on the board, I have witnessed overwhelming neighborhood support for these additional stop signs. It comes up during public commentary at almost every monthly meeting. Again, I am in full support of this bill, and I would like to thank Shameen. Okay, we have to read that. In support of
I want to hear that part.
Again, I am in full support of this bill, and I also would like to add my thanks to Alderwoman Clark Hubbard for her support of our neighborhood issues and concerns. Regards Stephanie Brown, which again is she's a commissioner on the Bolivar Place SBD. Thank you.
Can you send a copy of that for the clerk and myself to be submitted into the drive?
It was sent to the clerk.
Okay.
But if you want me to forward it from this one to you, it was sent to the clerk at 8:39 and myself.
Okay, then he has it. It just wasn't put in the drive. So, okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Oh, wait a minute. Let me look. It might not be.
All right, we'll get it into the drive now. Yeah, just forward it over. Don't worry about it.
It's a different email address for Clark Kennedy. That's why I paused. But yeah, it was sent. And so I'll just forward it now.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. We will move through the committee in order of seniority for questions. Alderman Balmer.
Well, everything I'd like to see that letter of support to make sure that the thank you to Shameen was written by the constituent and not just edited in.
I actually added it. It was me.
No question.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman. Alderwoman Keys.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. No questions. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Chair Browning, you're next in seniority, or Alderman Aldridge is? I always forget. It's Alderman Aldridge, isn't it? I know it is. He's giving me a look.
It's Alderman Browning's.
Okay, Vice Chair Browning. He just gave me a look. Got
it. No questions at this time. Thank you.
Alderman Aldridge?
No questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. I appreciate it. I also, don't have any questions and appreciate you bringing it forward. Any closing remarks, Alderman?
No, I would like some clarity. I don't know if you know or if anybody has been told. I know we have this new additional step with the speed humps of having to do the city works for each speed hump that we are legislating. So if anybody knows, do we need to do that for stop signs as well? I would like to make sure I ask that question publicly so we can move forward on it.
Thank you. I have not heard that we need to do anything additional for stop signs this time.
All right. Thank you so much. So with that, I would ask for your favorable consideration and do pass recommendation for Board Bill 118.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion for a due pass.
So moved.
Second.
Board Bill number 118, moved by Alderman Balmer, seconded by
me.
Okay, Alderman Browning, thank you.
Previous roll.
And there's been a call for previous roll. Any objection to previous roll? Hearing no objection, Board Bill number 118 has been passed out of committee with a due pass recommendation. Thank you, Alderwoman.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we will circle back now to Board Bill 100, introduced by Alderwoman Kara Spencer. Alderwoman Spencer, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chairwoman Schweitzer. Board Bill number 100 is a speed hump bill. And I have with me Terry Hoffman, who's with the Soulard Community Improvement District. This is a pretty hefty speed hump bill. There are 60 speed humps in here. I'll also say on the front end, there were a couple of little Scribner errors, which Terry caught in that. So we do have an amendment, which is also in the drive that I'd like to introduce just to clarify and clean up, make sure we got the addresses correct for the speed humps. So there are 60 speed humps in here that the Soulard neighborhood would like to put in. These speed humps were determined by CBV. They've been working with that transportation consulting agency, one that the city recommends and also uses for this work. 58 of the 6 speed humps are within the community improvement district, so they will be paid for by the Soulard CID, and our ward capital will be picking up the remaining 2. With that, we have Terry Hoffman here to answer any questions or add any more information that the committee may desire. So at that time, if you don't mind, Alderwoman Schweitzer, I'd like to just turn it over to Terry for a second.
Wonderful. Clerk Phillips, can you please swear in Mr. Hoffman?
Mr. Hoffman, if you hold your right hand up for me, please. Do you affirm or swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed.
All right. Thank you. And thank you, Alderman Spencer. And thank you for having me. And I just want to reinforce the support of the neighborhood behind the construction of 60 speed humps earlier this year as part of a broader traffic calming initiative that both the Soulard Community Improvement District and the Soulard Special Business District are undertaking. We installed 30 speed humps earlier this year, and the neighborhood reception with respect to those speed humps has been overwhelming. And most importantly, we believe that it is beginning to change driver behavior in our neighborhood.
Hey, Roebuck, this is Joe Palmer, Milo's.
We are a very big pedestrian neighborhood. We are a very big social entertainment neighborhood, and we are also a pass-through neighborhood for a lot of vehicles that don't seem to recognize stop signs, speed limit signs, or pedestrians for that matter. So we think speed humps are a very, very important and critical part of helping change driver behavior and slow traffic down in our neighborhood. And so that's why when we proposed the addition, the next phase of additional speed humps to the neighborhood organizations, there was overwhelming support for adding more, and in the best of all worlds, the community improvement district and the SPDs will be paying for it out of their political subdivision funds, with the exception of the two that Kara had mentioned. So we're pretty excited about it. The neighborhood loves them. In fact, people would love to have them in front of their house, although we can't put them in front of everybody's house. But they are a very popular asset over here, and we want to keep the momentum going. So thank you. And if anybody has any questions, please let me know.
Thank you so much for that testimony. We'll move through the committee in order of seniority for questions for either Mr. Hoffman or Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Vollmer?
No questions. Everybody loves a good hump.
Thank you for those wise words. Alderwoman Keys?
Thank you. No questions.
Vice Chair Browning?
Thank you. Yeah, it looks like Soulard is about to become the bumpiest neighborhood in St. Louis, which is fun. But question on the board bill, we have a little diagram. I don't know if we can get that up for the public to see, but there's just a map of where all these things are going. And on there's something that is indicated as, it says, entryway calming. I was wondering if you could speak to what that is and if that's part of the plan for
Sure.
this round.
Yeah, a great question. And we have multiple phases of traffic calming that we are going to be implementing over a multi-year time period. And on that map, the speed humps are referred to as what we are calling mid-intersection calming. The entryway calming is referring to 7 or 8 locations where we want to design and install and construct and install what I would call median-based traffic calming obstruction / monument type of things that will perform several functions. They will, A, slow traffic down and be obstructive to traffic as traffic is coming into the neighborhood. B, there'll be very physical and demarcatable markers of entry into the neighborhood. And 3, they can serve as a mounting and installation point for additional security cameras, so that we can have strong video of traffic entering and leaving the neighborhood at key entry points. So that is part of our longer term vision down the road a few years, but not part of this phase right here.
Thank you. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this project rolls out. And just for the public's knowledge, we can also see here that each speed bump costs $6,000. And so I don't know if people know that, but this is a significant investment into traffic calming that is being undertaken here in Soulard. And it is going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. One of the ways we can address traffic violence is through road design. So I wish you the very best with this project, and hope that it solves the needs that you're looking for it to solve.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Alderman Aldridge.
Questions?
Thank you so much. I have a newer special business district in my ward, the Holly Hill Special Business District, and they just put out an RFP for traffic calming within the boundaries of the neighborhood, and just that kind of work. Do you know who did this plan, this map? I mean, was it?
Yes, so we worked with CBB Engineering about a year and a half ago, and their name was given to us through BPS as one of the short list of traffic engineering consulting companies that they use for a lot of projects throughout the city. And CBB did it was probably about a six-month study to address a lot of the issues and opportunities surrounding traffic calming around the neighborhood. And speed humps were just but one of the recommendations that came out of that study. We have, and if you go back and refer to the map, there's mid-intersection calming strategies, there's intersection calming strategies, and there's entryway calming strategies, all three of which we're trying to pursue over a multi-year program, with CBB Engineering doing all of the design and engineering work for us as well.
Got it. And because they work so well with the city, and there are some people that the city use for different things, that they know that how to provide you what you need to actually, be ready to move forward. And I'm sure that's hugely helpful.
That is incredibly helpful, because it is a foreign maze to all of us non-city workers about how this stuff gets done. So they are helping us manage a very complicated process.
Right, I can imagine that. They do a lot of the work. I don't know if you had. Do you remember any of the other ones that were recommended to you?
I do not. I could dig it up for your reference if that might help you or your SBD. And I've even had some contacts with some of the folks that are in the SBD. But I can certainly dig up some names if that would be of help.
Yeah, the RFP is listed now, and I believe the question phase is coming next for the people who submit their proposals, ask the questions, and then they answer about where they are.
Yeah.
So but it's never a bad idea to have more places to get potential bids for projects. I'm sure you all have figured that out now. Just have it lined up.
Sure. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for your time and for the information and all the huge amount of volunteer time that I know goes into this sort of work in neighborhoods that do have these SIDs or special business districts. So thank you very much. I don't have any other questions. So Alderwoman Spencer, you're recognized to close for the amendments. Do you want to start introducing each of the amendments?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So we're going to have to introduce three amendments here. So looking at the drive here, we've got amendment number, like I said, this is just making sure that the addresses are correct. So amendment number 1 is just changing 2115 to 2112. They're just simple changes to the locations of those. So and they would follow then, once amended, the map that Alderman Browning pointed to, which is at the end of the board bill. So Madam Chair, I'd like to ask for favorable consideration on amendment number 1.
I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
To adopt amendment number 1 to Board Bill 100. We had a motion from Alderman Vollmer, seconded from Alderman Aldridge. Do I hear any call for previous roll?
Previous roll.
Any objection? Hearing no objection, we have adopted amendment number 1 to Board Bill number 100.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Amendment number 2, similarly, we're just going to insert the words South 8th Street into the language to properly reflect the location of that speed hump.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to adopt amendment number 2 to Board Bill 100.
Second, previous roll.
I am going to get all these words out before you all start seconding at some point. Thank you very much. You had a motion, I believe, from Alderman Vollmer, or from the 5th rather, Alderman in the 14th seconded. We had a call for previous roll. Hearing any objection to previous roll? Hearing no objection, amendment number 2 to board bill number 100 as amended has been adopted. Alderman, you're recognized on amendment number 3.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Amendment number 3 just inserts the words 800 block of to specify the location of that speed hump.
Wonderful.
And I ask for your favorable consideration.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion for amendment number 3.
Second, previous roll.
My goodness, we have the same folks. Alderman from the 5th, Alderman made the motion. Alderman from the 14th seconded and called the previous roll. Any objection to previous roll? Hearing no objection, we've adopted amendment number 3 to board bill number 100. So Alderman Spencer, you are recognized on board bill number 100 as amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With that, I appreciate the thoughtful conversation here around this massive speed hump bill, and I ask for the committee's favorable consideration of board bill number 100 as amended.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to pass amendment number 100, or sorry, board bill number 100 as amended out of committee with a do pass recommendation.
So move. Second, previous roll.
Okay, now we have a motion from Alderman from the 9th, second from Alderman from the 14th, and call for previous roll. Any objection? Hearing no objection, board bill number 100 as amended has been passed out of committee with a do pass recommendation. Wonderful. Thank you, Alderman Spencer. Thank you, Mr. Hoffman, for coming and speaking today. I should have also asked Alderman Spencer, you didn't have anyone else to speak on that bill. I should have asked you before we passed it.
We don't have anyone else. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right, moving on. Alderman Aldridge, I believe you have a bill to present to us today. You are recognized on board bill number 102.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. We are cruising right along on the speed hump bills. This is a speed hump, several speed humps for speed humps in the 14th Ward. I've broke down areas where residents have been asking for actually some of these speed humps prior to even coming in, but I broke them down by neighborhood. One that's really important that I do want to highlight, and they reached out to me, and thank you, Alderman Browning, for reminding me about it and bringing it to my attention, and being able to get back with them, is the one at 22nd Street and Locust at Washington Avenue. That is right outside an elementary school. A lot of cars fly down 22nd Street and also down that stretch of Wash Ave. When you get roughly to about 20th on Washington all the way to Jefferson, there is no stop sign, so they just kind of take off, and it's a lot of our young folks that are getting out of school, and cars have been flying down street, if it's Washington or if it's Locust, and they've been asking for it. Another very fast street also is the one at Hogan and Madison, as well as the one at St. Louis Avenue between Jefferson and North 20th Street, another street that they fly down. So trying to get these speed humps to be able to just slow down traffic. Would love to have like smaller roundabouts and look at other ways that we can do things outside of speed humps, but that's a longer conversation. But with that, I have no more comment, Madam Chairwoman.
Wonderful. And before we move on, you have no speakers or any written comments on the bill?
No, ma'am.
Wonderful. Thank you. So let's see, moving through the committee, Alderman Vollmer, any questions?
No questions, ma'am.
Alderwoman Keys?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No questions.
Vice Chair Browning?
No questions. Thank you.
Alderman Aldridge, you don't have any comments, obviously. Do you have a committee substitute, Alderman?
The committee substitute was submitted already. Oh, yes, I guess I need to, actually, I don't, yes, I think we need to adopt the committee substitute.
I do see it in the drive, so I know everything was done properly to get it in front of us in time.
Thanks for that reminder, by the way.
Sure. Can you tell us what the committee substitute does to change the bill just before we
Yes, it was one of the streets I left off in St. Louis Place neighborhood. So let me pull that up. It was an additional street that we had just missed out on when we was doing the locations.
Okay.
And that should be the 19th Street one. I think it's between Madison and Melanphier, 19th to Cass.
Madam Clerk, just to clarify, do we need a motion to also put the committee substitute in front of us, or just to adopt
Just to adopt it.
Okay, so, okay, wonderful. So at this time, so we make sure we move forward on the correct bill, I'll take a motion to adopt Board Bill 102, committee substitute. Adopt the committee substitute.
So moved.
Here, a second.
Second.
Any call for previous roll?
Previous roll.
Hearing no objection, Board Bill number 102, committee substitute, is adopted, and it is what we are discussing now in committee. Wonderful. So we already went through the questions on 102, and Alderman Aldridge explained the change. So unless anyone has any questions, okay, we will continue moving on. Wonderful. Alderman Aldridge, you are recognized to close on Board Bill 102, committee substitute.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, for entertaining this. A little upset that the alderman from the 5th didn't say he appreciate my humps in the 14th ward, but we'll take it, and I would ask for a do pass recommendation.
One hump at a time.
And when you get to 60, you get accolades. Until then. So wonderful. Thank you so much, Alderman, for bringing this forward. With that, I'll entertain a do pass recommendation for Board Bill 102, committee substitute.
So moved.
Second.
A motion from the Alderwoman from the 11th, a second from the Alderman from the 9th.
Previous roll.
And a call for previous roll. Any objection to previous roll? Hearing no objection, Board Bill 102 has passed out of committee with a do pass recommendation. I have the final bill. Alderman or Vice Chair Browning, do you mind taking over?
Sure thing. Okay. Alderman Schweitzer, you are recognized on Board Bill. Hang on, I had it open. 121.
Thank you. Again, this is another speed hump bill. The way that speed humps get installed in my ward has been through a petition process. So both of these streets on the 4000 block of Wilmington and the 6900 block of Eugene Avenue through Germania Avenue have gone through the process with residents there signing on to speed humps. They're more than 50% of the households along the several blocks along Eugene, and as well as the blocks on Wilmington, have signed on to these speed humps and have attested to the need of the speed humps for them. So I appreciate your consideration, and I hope to earn your vote to continue this through the legislative process.
Thank you, Alderwoman Schweitzer. We'll go through the committee to see if anyone has any questions. Alderman Vollmer.
I'm without questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Keys.
Thank you. No questions.
Alderman Aldridge.
No questions. Thank you.
And assuming that Alderwoman Schweitzer doesn't have any questions about the board bill, Alderwoman Schweitzer, you are recognized to close.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your favorable consideration of Board Bill 121.
So moved.
Second.
Previous roll.
Any call for previous roll? Is there any objection?
Still need a motion. You still need to say the words to be remembered. Yeah.
Okay, can we go back? Can we get, I'll entertain a motion to pass Board Bill 121 out of committee with a do pass recommendation.
So move.
Second.
Previous roll.
Okay, hearing a call for previous roll. Congratulations. No objections, right? Congratulations, Alderwoman Schweitzer, handing the chairmanship back to you.
Thank you so much for taking that over for that time. And thank you all for moving through those board bills. We are moving along our agenda. Those are the only board bills we had today. We have no resolutions for review. We have finished our committee discussions. Acknowledgement of any written testimony. Any written testimony, Madam Clerk?
No, just the one that Alderwoman Clark Hubbard already submitted. So we're good.
Wonderful, thank you. Announcements. I will say last week we had a good discussion with Director Bethany Williams, Streets Department, as well as Jamie Wilson, Traffic. But some of the questions that came up during that committee were really around paving and our paving list that all the wards received, all the aldermen received for previous requests. I have made a request of Director Williams to please let us know what the timeline is for getting our list to her and how that moves through the funding process. It's possible we will have her back again next week to answer more questions for any alderman who wants to come and ask questions about this during our committee meeting, and to just move the paving process along. We certainly heard from MoDOT. They have a different way of planning out paving projects and safety projects along their managed streets. So I think that was a good kind of lens for us to consider how we do things in the city of St. Louis. Anyone else have any announcements? Wonderful. I don't think we have any members who need to be excused. Perfect attendance. Wonderful. Well done, committee. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Previous rule.
No objection to previous rule. We are adjourned. Thank you all so much for your time.